Well, I'm the best corner in the game. What a run. Marshawn Lynch. Get off me.
DK. What's up? Hey, it's John Schneider with Seattle Seahawks.
That's the result you're going to get.
This offense, just in general. I mean, you had a guy like
watching
that.
his film, he seems more of a back.
Just the presence he's got in that pocket, the way he throws the football. Rust days, man. All the scrutiny that line was under.
This Monday night's big.
Guys, welcome back to the Hawk Zone Rundown. Today on the pod, we have Josh and Mitch from 12 Talk Podcast. Guys, thanks for coming on the show today, hanging out, talking Seahawks a few weeks out from the draft here.
Oh, dude, thank you so much for having us. Yeah. We're so excited to be on here, man. It's having seen you guys and everything you've had some amazing guests and put some amazing stuff out. We're hyped to be on here, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate it. So guys, let's get into it. Let's focus on the draft since we're, 3 weeks sort of out. It's coming quick. Everybody knows now John's on his own and, not with Pete by his side, that he's had for the last 14 years. What do you guys expect? Do you think it's business as usual with John coming into this draft as far as strategy is concerned? Or do you think, he might, because obviously the history with Schneider's been, trade back and accumulate picks. And right now we're sitting at, 7 picks. We gave up we gave up our second round pick. We got 16 and we don't pick all the way to like 81. So there's a big gap there. What are you guys kind of anticipating John strategy is kind of coming into this one?
I'm going to go first if you don't mind, Josh.
Yeah, go, dude.
He always leans on me for the draft stuff anyway. For me, I think situation A1 for John is to move to the back of the first round, pick up an early day 2 pick or a mid day 2 pick. And I think what we do is entirely dependent on the needs of the teams at the back end of the first round, needing an offensive lineman, needing a replacement wide receiver. I think about the Bills. I think about maybe the Packers. I think about teams like Minnesota looking to move around the board. There's teams that are going to be moving around loads, and situations will change live. And John is brilliant at sniffing out a deal in the moment. So I think that whilst there's going to be players that fit needs for us at 16, players like Fatanu, I think everyone's mocked him to us for the last few months, players like Johnny Newton that would be a real difference maker on the D-line. There's players that are going to be there at 16, but John is going to be very receptive to the teams that are trying to win now, that are giving up second round picks and a later first potentially for our 16th. And I think there's about 5 teams. Honestly, Kansas City as well. I didn't mention them. They're desperate, especially with Rashee Rice's news as well. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. Just on the Kansas thing, they've now got Lewis Rees-Zammit. So let's see how that goes.
That's right.
But for anyone who doesn't follow rugby or doesn't know like Reese Lightning, as we call him in rugby circles, just go and watch his highlights. He's got some fantastic measurables that will really go, but they'll translate really well, either as a kick returner or just some special teams ace. It'd be a wild card. But anyway, that's the Chiefs. Who cares? So I'm very much in the same mindset as Mitch. So I think as 16 is a fantastic pick for what we'll need, especially when it comes to the O-line. I think John's going to look to trade back, and there are so many teams now. When you look at what's happened with the Bills trading Diggs, I think they're prime to want to trade up. Whenever we do a mock draft, for me, my personal favorite is the Detroit Lions, because I think they're probably look at their roster and go, there's a couple of pieces that we need to fill in the draft to become a real contender. And I think if we can trade back with one of those, then we'll recoup that later first round plus a second round, if not more, depending on how desperate they are with who's on the board. That's my preference. I'm always a preference of trading back. It was my preference last year, but then we picked up Devon Witherspoon, and I was quite happy with that based on this season going up, or the season that just went. I think trading back and looking at one of those teams that are desperately trying to target a premium player in sort of the wide receiver position is going to be key for us.
Yeah, no, me and Ryan have gone back and forth, and we've done a couple mocks. I've done some mocks on my own, and Buffalo, Green Bay, Detroit tend to be the teams I can trade back with, and I've been able to trade back twice in the first round with both of them to recoup a bunch of that meat of the draft, like John usually calls the 3rd to 5th round, where he loves to pick guys up in that area. The only thing for me, and this is where I just kind of get concerned with Seattle and the outlook of this franchise right now with what they're doing with the new regime and the draft, is your defense and offense are kind of in two different places. Your offense is a win now with the talent they have and the contracts they have at the skill positions like DK, Tyler, Gino, Noah Fant. But then you've got this O-line, which is nowhere near being finished or close to being complete. Like we've all said, that they need to address the inner O-line. It needs to be something that's a priority. And we've said that for I don't know how many years now. I think the entire Pete Carroll regime with John Schneider has been an interior O-line issue. But then you look at your defense, and the defense is almost in a complete rebuild now with Bobby gone, Brooks gone, Quandre gone, Jamal gone. And so instead of the team being all on one side of we're fully doing a rebuild or we're fully in the go win for it now mode, you've got this split. And it makes this draft very weird on how you address certain things, because you're going to get fans that look at, what John said in his presser and when he announced, or they announced after Pete had been let go, that, we underperformed last year. But then you got everything and you're expecting this team to perform better than what they did just by switching out a staff, essentially. It makes it really weird for me on how you address this draft and how you address the next couple of years, because we're not a Super Bowl contender this year. And with the way that we're constructed currently, we're going to be lucky if we're the 3rd best team in our division, because we all thought the Rams were going to be awful last year, and the Rams kicked the crap out of us twice. And so for me, I agree. I think we do need to trade back because we need to get value for what we're doing. There's some good, meat in that draft for the but we've eventually got to pick a quarterback of the future, because I know we all love Gino. Like we love Gino on our side. We think he's been great for what he's done, but Gino's not getting any younger. And I get that he hasn't played for X amount of years, but that's still, father time catches up to you rather quick. And I'm not sold yet on Sam Howell being our future per se.
I tend to agree. I mean, the Sam Howell thing, I know John likes to say they were really high on various players during their sort of draft cycle. And I can understand it. I'm not sold on Howell, but I can see where his intangibles can really be appealing to people. He's younger than the majority of the quarterbacks that are being named at the top of this draft. And he's had a year's worth of NFL experience. So that is a huge plus for him. And the scheme he played in, the system he played in at Washington wasn't great. They asked him to throw so much. That's why his touchdown to interception ratio was so awful. And plus, you look at the scheme they played, it wasn't quarterback friendly, even though they're asking him to throw it so much. You look at the routes they were running, and you look at it seemed they couldn't adjust to the coverage that they were playing against. So he was having to throw to these routes. And even though he had some great receivers, they were running the wrong routes every single time. I do think that a quarterback of the future is necessary, but I don't want to draft someone in the first round. I think as much as everyone loves Penix and following his pro day, looking at what he did at the Huskies, he's a great player. I don't want to waste a first round pick just to get him, because I've said this on our pod, the best ability is availability. And with his injuries, obviously I know he's getting past them now. He ran a fantastic 40 at his pro day. I don't think anyone's going to take that risk. It's very much the same as Latu, which Mitch and I have spoken about at length. Fantastic player, but the medical history is really going to put people off. I think this draft is going to be very much, it's not this draft is going to fix it. It's going to be at least a 2-year process where we're going to look to fix some key areas this year, whether it be a fantastic player who can be a rotation to start with. So say like a Johnny Newton who'll come in the defensive line and he'll be able to be in that rotation until he gets all the knowledge of playing the NFL and what to do and really progress his game to be the number one. Or we're going to look at a guard / tackle maybe on the O-line that will then have a year to acclimatize and be able to become that starting, hopefully, like Pro Bowl level guard. And I don't, Mitch is, so for our pod, if anyone doesn't know who's listening to you guys or watching this, Mitch is our draft guy. He has got so much information about this. So I'll hand it over to Mitch because I know he's probably dying to talk about this as well.
There's a couple of bits. I've been trying to remember all the things that I need to sort of jump in with. Going right the way back to you, Bryce, when you mentioned about how our offense and defense are at different stages, I actually think that there's enough players that haven't quite had that kick on yet that if they did this year, it would just look so different. I mean, imagine Oluwatimi comes in, looks like a starter in the league. You know, we've got Cam Young there as well from Mississippi, who was brilliant at creating pressure from the nose tackle position. I think this year he'd be capable of doing the DT and NT role in the 4-3, you know, flexing front that we'll be playing. So he can have a real impact. Derek Hall is another guy with infinite potential that could really excel in this system. There's a number of players in there that if they'd have looked like NFL starting players last year, we would feel like we were slightly more rounded on defense, and you know, so that it could feel we could come out of this draft, select a load of starter players good enough to start and have a kick on in year 2, and suddenly it could feel like we put 10 new players into this roster. So I take your point completely. I understand exactly the point you're making. I feel like we could get a little bit lucky with some of those guys who are really talented. I mean, Oluwatimi was first team All-American center when we drafted him. Bradford looked like he had real starting potential but didn't quite get starting snaps. You know, all those players. And also another one I'll throw in, Mike Morris as well, who I was really high on, whose season got cut really short. And Jerick Reed, who was absolutely tearing it up on teams last year and couldn't get on the field. So we could have serious kick on there, I think, in year 2 from a huge amount of that. That's a large percentage of that draft class, by the way. That's like half of it. So this could feel like a draft class and a half if we get it right. And it would also be the third one in a row we've smashed. So you can't do an awful lot better to rejuvenate your roster than nail 3 draft classes in a row, right? So I take your point. I fully get what you're saying. I just have a little bit of hope there that we can get that kick on. One other thing that was said that I kind of waited to jump on. Josh, you mentioned Detroit and that being one of your favorite trades. I actually think they're probably the most likely trade as well. Because the most mocked player this offseason, statistically, using the databases that I keep an eye on, Detroit trading up or taking Quinion Mitchell if he falls. Quinion Mitchell, the first team other than Detroit Lions that are heavily mocked to take Quinion Mitchell are the Jags. So someone trying to get in front of the Jags who pick after us, you're looking at the Detroit Lions. The other team are Green Bay. Green Bay's top 2 picked players in mocks this offseason are Quinion Mitchell and Terrion Arnold, which just has big flashy lights coming up to get a cornerback to compete because they were a playoff team this year, right? They were lacking a couple of bits. Offense looked great, couldn't quite compete enough to get deep into the playoffs. Keep an eye on Green Bay and Detroit. Those are just my little bits I wanted to chuck in from what's been said so far.
Detroit, I'm right. It's going to happen. I'm willing it to happen.
You're willing it to happen. Yeah, I know. And I agree with you guys on the quarterback thing, Josh, that you were talking about. Like, you don't want to take one in the first round. I just want to start, like, if we're able to trade back and get some of these picks, I want to see John start taking a few swings, like in the 4th or the 5th round on a guy. Like, Russell Wilson was a 3rd round, in a lot of ways, a 3rd round swing pick for some. And, you know, like a guy like Jordan Travis or Joe Milton.
Just about to mention Jordan Travis. That is my guy.
And those are 2 guys for me. Like Spencer Rattler, I was high on him earlier. I've watched a lot of them, but with the Sam Howell trade, I see a lot of similarities between the two, between how Rattler plays, how Sam Howell plays. So I'm not so high on getting a duplicate, but Jordan Travis, every year he was at Florida State, he got better. He went from you need to switch positions as a freshman to they can't win without you when you break your leg, and the entire Florida State team fell apart last year. And then you look at Joe Milton. He's just Anthony Richardson on steroids, it seems like, with some of the stuff he's able to do. If I'm going to take a swing on a guy, take on a swing with a guy that's got, sorry, some intangibles, a guy that can throw the ball, like that you can work with and develop. Because, Mitch brought up Green Bay. One thing that Green Bay has done, and where John Schneider's come, is they have done a phenomenal job of drafting and then developing their quarterback for 3 years before they throw them out into the NFL. They're not this, hey, we're drafting you, you're going right out there. Like Russell Wilson was a bit of an anomaly because he was a mature quarterback when he came out of college. But you look at Bryce Young last year, he was in over his head in Carolina. CJ Stroud, there were some good things about him, and CJ Stroud was a bit of an anomaly. But that's the thing. Like, I'd rather see the Jordan Love approach, Aaron Rodgers approach, where you're sitting there for 3 years, you develop, and then we throw you out there and you're like ready to go. Because, we all thought Jordan Love was a bust 2 years ago. And why did they even think about doing it during that draft period? And now you look at Jordan Love and you're going, and Green Bay again is going to have a run possibly of another 10, 15 years with a franchise quarterback, one after another after another. They may not win a Super Bowl in that time, but they're at least going to be competitive.
I think it speaks to the mentality Green Bay have when you look at sort of Favre to Rodgers, now to Love. And like I said, everyone thought Love was going to be a bust, but he sat behind, same as Rodgers did, one of the great quarterbacks in the league, and he's learned so much. And then it's for any player, regardless of what sport you're in, what position you're in, to be thrown straight into the deep end. It's very difficult to go straight into the deep end and just perform at such a high level. You've got to get your feet wet. You've got to realize sort of how the league plays and where everything is. And I think after you're probably talking half a season with Love, he really started to show what he can do when he realized what coverages were, who he was playing against, how he could play, what his teammates were doing. And it works so well for them. I say this bitterly because my best friend is a Green Bay Packers fan, and I mocked him for so much of this, like the first half of the season, and I shut up really quick. I would love us to take someone like Jordan Travis is my unsung hero quarterback of this draft. I know a lot of people see us taking Spencer Rattler in sort of the third or fourth. I'm not a big fan of it, if I'm honest. I could see the benefits of what he does, and I think he's matured as a quarterback. But someone like Jordan Travis, coming from a massive injury, sitting behind Geno for 1 or 2 years, let him learn the system, learn how to play. I think he'd be a great addition. And then we've interviewed John Rice Plumtree from UCF.
Yeah,
and I think he's got some fantastic intangibles as well. He's a bit of a wild card, but with that coaching and sitting behind a great quarterback, he could be a fantastic addition to this as well. Whether that's as a perennial backup, which, let's face it, the way the league's going, it's probably the best position to have if you're not going to play. You're just going to earn a load of money and sit behind a great player, and every now and again, play amazing. But that's for me. It's and we've said this. It's this season and the next season, maybe the season after, it's all about the unknown. So have those unknown commodities where you don't know what's going to happen, but they could be an absolute gem.
I don't think there's one in this draft. I kind of feel like we're top heavy. Honestly, I look at the players like Joe Milton, and he showed me nothing at the combine and nothing at his pro day that disproved any of the negatives that anyone said about him at any point. And anyone who watched big old arm, nothing else. I'm not a fan of Spencer Rattler because of the TV series, and it showed him to be it's just such an ego. It didn't show me leadership qualities at all. And once he got into college and started playing, he was taking on, and I like my quarterback to be confident and to back himself. I think Geno is the other side of that. In fact, and Howell is the polar opposite of that. But Spencer Rattler was taking on throws that were like hero plays At times when he didn't need to make hero plays, he just needed to move the sticks to win a game, and he threw games away and got benched, and it kept happening to the point where he just had to move colleges. And I know there's a lot of there with I think Caleb Williams ended up with his starting job as well at one point. But he ended up at the Gamecocks, didn't he, where he got to play and suddenly looked like he'd learnt to rein it in a bit and put the team first rather than his own interests. But between that TV series and this year, that was a seriously long period of time it took him to grow up and take it seriously. I don't really want that as a leader in our locker room. We've just come from Russell Wilson making it all about him. Don't want to go back to that. Not in a hurry. And for all of Gino's downfalls, he is not putting himself before anyone else in that locker room.
Yeah, no, so, I agree with that. And, you know, we love Gino, and we're just looking to say, you know, and I agree with the top heavy thing. But you look at the next year's draft, and you know, maybe the one guy we talk about is you know, Quinn Ewers, right? That John is really high on. But again, if he has a big year, you know, we had Rob Staten on a few weeks back, and we were actually chatting about that same thing. And he said, you know, if he has a year that, you know, maybe people expect he might have a really good year, he could be a top 5 or number 1 overall pick. So you're kind of in that same spot because, you know, the team, as we know, the way we're set up, you know, Mitch, you're high on a lot of guys that really haven't had a chance. So, you know, this team could, you know, you look at this team, it's going to be, you think they're going to at least compete, right? So you're not going to be in that lottery area. So that just puts you in a tough spot, right? Because, you know, we are high on Penix. You know, we tend to agree at 16, you know, you there's so many other needs. You need to accumulate picks. Are you guys still, would Penix be a guy for you guys if you could get him in a certain spot in the draft? If you accumulated, if John somehow got back in the second round, and if he fell back there, because, you know, like you said, you know, you guys talk about injury history, maybe no one takes a chance, but as you know, he got a lot of hype on the pro day. We actually think that the Raiders might go up and scoop him even before 16. So this could be a moot point, but if somehow he's there, you know, we're going to do a mock in it coming up here in a second, but, you know, would you take him? Do you like the leadership qualities, the arm talent? Could you see that guy maybe as a long-term guy if you got him at the right spot in the draft?
I think he's a perfect fit for what we're building. And it's not just to do with Grubb. I think it's a perfect fit. He's always someone that had relied on his arm and high quality weapons, and a decently constructed run game as well. We can do all of that for him, right? And we also provide him with an environment where he doesn't have to start immediately. And the big advantage that I see with taking Penix is it unites the Huskies and the Seahawks, because there are a lot of Huskies fans that aren't necessarily Seahawks fans, but something like that will unify Seattle. It'll unify Washington to a certain extent. It just merges. It's just a fantastic thing for the franchise, right? It's a big statement. The only thing is, 16 feels a little bit high. But if he's there, if we were to say trade with Green Bay, they're picking 7 spots back from us. That would mean that the contract for Penix, it's suddenly not quite, you know, it's a 16th pick. You're looking at what? I think it's about 24 to 30 million over the 4 years. Is that right?
Yeah,
I think. But the difference moving back 7 or 8 spots takes about 8 million off that, right? Over the 4 years, maybe more like 6.5, 7. But that feels better. I mean, if he has any injury or if he has to sit for a year, suddenly it feels easier to stomach that. If you're truly believing in him being the future, and I just see a good fit. I just don't think at 16 it's going to work. Like, not that it's not going to work. I just don't think it fits the draft capital that you'd have to pay. I'm just not sure.
And as well, Mitch, I just look at it and I go, there's no way John Schneider is going to sit from 16 to 81 doing nothing for that draft period. Like, he just won't do that. So I don't see it happening anyway. Like, I don't see us, unless we don't have a trade partner, there's no way we're picking at 16. I just don't see it, because John's not going to want to sit there for however long between 60 and 81, twiddling his thumbs, watching guys just keep going off the board. But like you said, if we trade back with Green Bay and he's still there, that to me changes a lot in how this draft happens because there's so much potential still in the second, third round to get interior linemen. And like our D line is not, as is currently constructed with Leonard Williams coming back, is not as much of a problem, I think, as it was when we went into last year's draft where everyone was freaking out about not having a proper interior D line and all that kind of stuff. And the other thing I like about trading back is you still, if you get them in the first round, you still have that 5th-year option. So if there is an injury year, you still have that extra year that you could potentially use rather than just the 4 that you get when they're a 2nd to 7th round player. You get that extra year to, you know, if he sits on the bench, we still have 4 years of club control on you that we can still use.
Yeah, I like it.
I think the trade back option, we've mentioned like all of our trade partners. I think having a Green Bay, Detroit on the cards would be fantastic. If we trade back, and it's something that's not been spoken about a lot. If we trade back with someone like Green Bay and we go further, or someone like Buffalo, let's say, where we go even further back in the first round and pick up a second, maybe we can still pick a quality first round player that will be a starter for us. We go to the second. There's nothing to say that John will then, if Penix falls, let's say, John will not look to then trade up in the second to get someone like Penix because he'll go, right, I have now got a starting guard and I've got a starting tackle / guard. So say like sort of Fuaga or Fatanu, or we go someone like Barton.
Yeah.
Then we get to the second round and John looks at how it's all shaping out and goes, Penix is still there. What can I package together to move up in that second to go and get a Penix? There's nothing saying he's going to stop that. And maybe with Penix's injury history, obviously he's fit and healthy now, but it will give them another year of him sitting as possibly the 3rd choice quarterback, because we can carry 3 now, where they can just work on him to make sure he is fully physically fit and he can start learning properly. It's not out of the realms of possibility. And it's not something that if we picked him up in the second, I wouldn't be angry about that. If we picked him up at 16, or if we moved back and then picked him, I think there's something in me that would be a little bit annoyed when we do our sort of live watch party. I will, if we pick Penix in the first round, I'll be scared for my 4-year-old because I will scream at my TV. I just think it'll be a wasted pick. There are so many other areas of need. I think the way we've constructed this roster, you said earlier about Bobby and Brooks going, and Bobby is a Seattle legend. He'll retire as Seattle legend. We'll probably retire his jersey number, and we probably should. He'll be in the Ring of Honor. Brooks, jury's still out. Maybe he'll do well in Miami, but we've constructed this roster now where even if it's a 1 or 2 year deal, we've got players that will fit what Mike Mack wants. If we can then get a player to slot in as a starter in the first round, that second round, we then go, you know what, Penix is available. We can move up for him. We can maybe get rid of a 3rd or 4th. I'll be fine with that because he could be a quarterback of the future. But I just can't bear the thought of taking him in the first. I really can't. I think there's other areas of need where we can really strengthen this team and look to the future to be a really, really progressive franchise that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, great points, guys. So, you know what? It's going to be interesting because coming up on the other side, we're going to get into our own mock draft here. So we'll see where Penix is when we get to 16 and see if, you know, what Bryce and I are talking about, maybe the Raiders scoop up, maybe not. We'll make some decisions, but mock draft coming up on the other side. Guys, welcome back. We're it's that time right now, so we're gonna get into this mock draft. We're using walkthemock.com. These guys are awesome, man. So it's kind of our go-to when we're doing mocks. So we're gonna kick this off and get ready to go in the first round. So Bryce, why don't you get it going here?
All right, we'll start the draft. We'll see. I wonder if Drake May goes off the board first, like it's done the last couple of times. All right, so we'll skip to our pick. Okay, so
No,
Marvin
whoa,
Oh,
that's
wow.
interesting.
Okay, so we'll just run through that quick. So Marvin Harrison, apparently I guess Shane Waldron was not a fan of Caleb Williams or any of the quarterbacks in this year's draft. So we obviously all know Caleb Williams is probably going to go to Chicago. So that's, Jaden Daniels, JJ McCarthy goes to the Falcons. And like we figured, Michael Penix isn't even a worry for you, Josh. He's gone to the Raiders. So the surprising
There
thing in
you
all
go.
of this, though, is the Chicago does get their quarterback, Drake May, Bo
Okay.
Nix. So all the quarterbacks that are the top echelon, like Mitch said, they're all pretty much gone within the first 13 picks of this draft. So we don't really have to worry. Given what's available on the board here, Brock Bowers is still on the board. Don't get me wrong, I love him as a tight end, but he would be a total luxury pick right now, and I just don't see a point in taking him right now. Quinyon Mitchell's there. So who do we want to trade back with, guys? Because we're definitely in a spot here to trade back with.
but Mitch and I have had this conversation where if Brock Bowers is there, I say no. But Mitch has said he'd be very tempted by this.
Oh, I'm
And I can
tempted.
see
I'm
why.
100% on Mitch's
Yeah.
court here. I'm tempted.
I just think if we're John Schneider and you've got maybe 15, 16 players with a first round grade on them, that is one of them.
Yeah.
But I also think that Quinyon Mitchell will be one of those as well. And if Troy Fatan is there, I think that is another. And so would be Fuaga. So it would take a proper offer from a team coming up to take John off one of those four. And John did say in the John Schneider show that the Seahawks are incorporating positional need into their grades. So we may well see a different sort of grading from them than other teams on players.
Yeah,
But,
Fatano's there as well.
Connor's there as well.
that's-
Mims is there. And the interior O-line. Like everybody that we kind of are thinking about, guys, are all kind of sitting here right now.
Yeah.
I think we do trade back though. I think that's kind of the idea. Or do you guys want to, is there someone you want to stick and pick?
I still think trading back is situation A1 if there's a good situation there. But if we were forced to pick at 16, there's a few there. I'd send Captain Seahawk on roller skates up to the podium to fire that pick in, because I wouldn't have any regrets about a few of those at 16, honestly.
So do we want to try and trade back with Green Bay because they're the next closest, I'd say? Or do we go to Detroit or Buffalo? Because those are the three that I see as viable actual trade partners. I know Josh is pounding the table for trading with Detroit.
If we're trying to be... Carry on.
Go, Mitch.
I was just going to say, if we're trying to be realistic, if Quinyon Mitchell's available, I think we're going to get a very eager set of trade offers from Green Bay and Detroit. And I believe he was there. So I think whichever one of those two is... because I think Brian Thomas Jr. went off the board just before us as well, which would downgrade the interest of teams like Kansas City, I think, and Buffalo, exactly. If Brian Thomas is on the board when we're picking, I think, and if Quinyon Mitchell's there and Brian Thomas is there, we've got 4 trade offers potentially coming in. And that's a dream scenario for us. And even more so if there's a quarterback there. But in this scenario, they're not. So
let's see what we can get from Green Bay here. I've done a trade with them before. So Green Bay will take the 125. And I think we might be able to get their higher second because, again, they're coming up to us. We can see if it gets accepted. If not, we can always move off to...
This is where I like Detroit, because when you look at where they are in the draft and where they probably want to be with players, you can get 3 picks based on the scoring.
Right.
You can get 3 picks. So you can get a first, a second, and a 4th or a 5th from Detroit for this 1 pick.
So
and
let's
that's why
see
I tend to lean to them.
Let's see if Green Bay accepts this. And they did.
They do.
So we move back. Green Bay now takes our pick, so we'll skip up to ours. And
they take Latham.
Wow, they took Latham. And then Quinyon Mitchell went right after to Jacksonville. So we tried to play in Green Bay's mind and it didn't work. And of course, our nightmares are
Ugh.
realized when Brock Bowers goes to Sean McVay.
Cooper DeJean there to
Yes, he's a name that I keep hearing a lot of.
Mitch and I have said this in our pod. I think Cooper DeJean is the weapon that Mike McDonald would genuinely salivate over.
Yeah.
Yes,
Because he can play anywhere. You can play him at box safety coverage. You can put him at nickel. You can put him at outside corner. You could he can blitz. It doesn't matter where you put him. He's effective. I think for this pick, looking at who's on the board, and I'd be I wouldn't
Roy
say
Fatanu's still
concerned.
there.
I was going to say Fatanu would be my pick here. I don't know if everyone's in agreement. Byron
yeah,
I'm
Murphy,
wondering if we can't move back with Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would take where Fatano's still there. I mean, that would be my
Yeah.
choice right there, just because it's such a big need. But, you
I'm
know,
wondering
that's
if
what I'm
we-
looking at.
Yeah,
need familiarity.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the exceptional player. I think it'd be Fatanu for me. I mean, I'm happy to sort of put it to that a lot of us like they put it to a vote.
Mitch, what do you
so to
think?
speak.
We're talking trading back again with Detroit or taking
Yeah.
Fatanu, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
because I look
Yeah.
at it this way: Fatanu's still there. Wiggins is still on the board for Detroit coming up for a corner. Like if we look at the cornerback situation, there's a bit of a drop off that will occur relatively soon. And then at the receiver position, you know, Xavier Worthy's still there, Adion Mitchell. I don't know if we can't trade back with Detroit a couple spots. Maybe Fatanu sticks.
If we're being realistic and in the
Yeah.
mind of John Schneider, if we trade back once to recoup picks and a player like Fatanu's still there,
True.
I genuinely think that Grubb may climb
Strangle him
over
if
a
he doesn't
table
pick him.
Yeah, exactly.
and punch John
Bang
Schneider
his
in the
fist,
face if he doesn't take him.
That's a fair point. Okay, so
And I mean, realistically, guys, real quick. I mean, I don't even see him still here at this point of the draft, right? So I mean, you know, like you said, if we're realistic and he's there, you can't even gamble a couple of spots.
all right, let's take Troy Fatanu then. I think we're all in consensus on taking that. That's a blue chip player for us, and he does give us flexibility. If Cross doesn't pan out, he could possibly kick out to tackle, and if Abe Lucas has problems, he could possibly switch and play right. So, all right,
That would be an unbelievable situation, by the way,
Yeah.
if John's phone was ringing while he was writing Fatanu on a piece of paper. Sorry, to take you off that in that moment, the offer would have to be wild. It would have to be a wild offer. And if that actually came in, I think that you'd feel it. Of course you would. You'd take every second you could before, handing the pick in. But if Detroit wanted to, I mean, at that point, if Detroit were coming up, it's Byron Murphy, maybe,
Right?
Maybe.
or Johnny Newton if
Yeah.
they're still there. And they were there, so maybe that is viable. But
All right,
Bryce.
Yeah. So we'll skip to the next pick.
There's Byron Murphy gone.
Yep.
All right, so Robinson went, Murphy went, Mitchell went, Wiggins went, Kinstry went, Mims, Franklin. Wow, Newton lasted to the second round, the top of it, which is kind of surprising. There's Graham Barton, who's another guy I really like. That's someone that he's polarizing to me as Jackson Powers Johnson.
Yeah.
Some people are really high on him, some aren't. Okay, so we're on the board again. This is where again I'm kind of interested in what side do you think we go on here? We picked an offensive guard. Do we go to the D line? Let's have a look here and see. Now I really like Braden Fisk. He's a guy I'm very high on. Same with Chris Jenkins. I think both those guys could come and be rotational. And I think in some possibilities that they really do a great job in training camp and whatnot, really are going to make it hard on Jaron Reed to make this roster next year. And he might be a trade or cap casualty in training camp, possibly, if one of these two guys is, a pick and ends up coming in and being a bit of a playmaker for us. What does our edge class look like?
I was just going to ask, who's the...
So top of the edge is
Braswell
Chris
there.
Braswell, Nealand.
Ellis, yeah.
Like, I don't see anybody in there that makes me think, hey, I want to pick them at this point.
Nope.
What are the linebackers looking like at this stage?
Let's see here. Linebacker.
Cooper,
So
No, just
Untouched.
Peyton Wilson,
Peyton Wilson, someone we're high on.
Junior Colson.
Junior
And
Colson's
Junior
there.
Colson's still there at 51. So
I know it's a very bandwagon pick, this, but when you look at a brand new coaching staff and creating a new scheme, a new ethos, everything for this club, Peyton Wilson, we're very high on. Mitch and I watched the combine, and he blew us away. Edger Cooper, I've got character concerns. Peyton Wilson is one of those that he's a player you can move into any position. He could essentially go from linebacker to safety. His athleticism is off the charts. But when you look at the familiarity that someone like Colson will say, and a friend of both our pods, Dan Viens, just did a fantastic pod where Junior Colson was picked. And I can't deny the fact that Colson, by the time he finishes his rookie deal, will be 25.
right.
His breakout year with Mike McDonald. I can't look past that. I think he's a fantastic weapon. He's so young. He's done so well in a Michigan defense that was nothing until Mike Mack took over. I think Mike Mack will look at that and think, I want him. So for me, it'd be Braswell. Not Braswell. It would be Jenkins. Oh, Cooper Beebe's there as well. It'd be Jenkins or Colson. I think we're going to look to have some sort of Michigan defense within this draft, and someone that he'll rate highly.
So someone here, just for a trade back possibility where we may end up still being able to get Junior Colson. The Giants to me are interesting here because if we look at quarterback, I could see them taking a swing on a guy like a Spencer Rattler high because of how many guys, like Mitch had said, gone off the board. Bo Nix is even off the board. And there isn't a big, huge supporting cast right now there for Daniel Jones. You've seen it through the offseason. So do we try and trade back and get another pick and then go after a Junior Colson or someone like that? Or do we stick and pick here and then our next pick isn't till number 17 in the third round?
Who did the Giants take at number 6? Because if they didn't take a wide receiver and there's one on the board, I can guarantee you that
Roma
Caleb White-
Dunze.
Roma Dunze.
never mind, no longer a need.
Yeah, no longer a need. Because I'm looking just in this bracket here, the Colts, Giants, Raiders.
Give the Texans nothing. They don't need anything else.
Yeah, they're good. They're sold. The Raiders we might be able to trade back with because they did take a quarterback. They might want to. They let Hunter Renfrew grow. They only have Devontae Adams really at receiver. They might be a team that looks at a receiver right now.
There'll be a team horny for a bit of Xavier Worthy as well.
Yeah,
And
so he beats. Yeah,
who likes a speedy wide receiver? I heard Miami. that is if there's anyone that's going to bite your
You should
hand
give
off
them
the stand.
3. Why not? They can have Waddle, Hill.
yeah, no kidding. Where's
Worthy.
Miami in this whole thing? Miami is way down at 20. That's too
too
far of a
far.
drop.
Yeah, I would say so as well. I think we're
Let's
looking
try
at
the
6,
Raiders.
7
Let's see if
spots
we
back.
can get something with the Raiders here and just see if they're gonna bite because they are a pretty. Let's see if we can get the 12. So we drop back. I'm just wondering, maybe we can pick up a 6 from them.
Or a 5th is just
Ooh.
outside.
You know what? That's a pretty good one, John. I think we might be able to do this. Let's see. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
I like
so we
that.
moved back 3 spots and picked up a 5th
There was
round
so
pick.
many players there that we would have taken in a heartbeat with a second round pick. There's
Right.
going to be one still there when we're picking here for
Right,
sure.
exactly. And we were able to get a 5th round pick. So there you go. So all of our options are kind of still on that board there
Yep.
because the Raiders went corner. They took Rakestraw Jr., Michael Hall Jr. So, okay, guys, out of Chris Jenkins and Junior Colson, who do we want to take here?
My vote's on Colson. Some people might think that's a bit high, but we've gathered so much capital by trading back.
Yeah.
I think it covers a slight reach. I think.
I think we've said it as well that there are so many players in this draft, and it's not the fact that the linebackers are then it's not that they're not starting caliber players. It's the fact that there are other players above them in these, in inverted commas, premium positions
Right.
that people will take
Pushing them
above
down.
them. Where for me, looking at our franchise, our team, a big need for us is a linebacker that will be there for a long time.
Well, considering that basically besides, Baker and Dotson, you're looking at O'Connell and Drake Thomas,
Mhm.
who we all know are just special teams guys anyways. So I'm in agreement.
And the only one that's on more than a 1-year contract, as Mitch put in one of our pods, is Drake Thomas, who's got a 2-year contract. Everyone else is
Right.
on one. So,
All right, so we'll take Junior Colson here. We'll make Josh a happy camper. He can
so you're
not
making a
scream
lot
at
of
the TV.
Seahawks fans happy campers here.
All right, so let's skip to our next pick. So there you go. You're talking about speed. There you go. Derek Carr got Xavier Worthy. Very interesting. There goes Oh, really, Philly? All Philly does is stock D linemen. Now they got Braden Fisk to go with Jalen Carter. Our worst nightmares. And Miami took Peyton Wilson, Edgerton Cooper. Buffalo took Chris Jenkins. Okay. So
It's interesting that Wilson went above Cooper.
Wow.
And
well,
Cooper.
and there you go. So, like I had said, the Giants wanted a quarterback, just not that high. They took Michael Pratt. Oh, that's a perfect landing spot for Spencer Rattler of all places, Mitch.
Yeah, they can have him. I'm fine with it.
Oh,
They like suffering over there.
Yeah,
to
this
see
is
that. But yeah, the Raiders.
that
is-
Zach Zinter's someone that's on my board of someone I'd
Yeah.
like to take. Okay, so we're here at 317. Let's see what the big
Abrams Drain's gone to the Bengals as well.
It's one of Josh's favorites. Yeah.
Oh.
So
here we go.
My
So-
guy, cornerback.
Kalen Bullock's there. He's a Mason Smith. That's someone that interests me. But the thing is I was listening to, actually, speak of Dan Vians, I was listening to Dan talk about him, and he was saying, or it was Michael Thompson from 12th Man Rising on, and he said he's got character. It just screams Malik McDowell to me. All this high-end potential when he's on, but is he going to be on enough where, it justifies a 3rd-round pick? We could always do the typical thing and take Blake Corum here and add another running back to the room. Mitch shakes his head. Cedric Van Prime. That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Let's see what
Jaden
Hicks.
Hicks there as well. Yummy.
Did you say yummy?
You did say yummy.
It's a delicious pick, man. You got to say yummy.
So
Kieran Amagaji's a really fascinating one as well.
Yeah.
I know we've already gone guard/tackle, but Jaden Hicks really high on him, and Kieran Amagaji right at the top of the board there is a serious prospect who just hasn't quite put it together enough to be a 1st or 2nd round guy, but he has all the tools and all the flexibility you'd ever want as a on a D line. He's a fascinating pick, Amagaji, but we have touched on that need.
So Bryce, one thing we've said, I know you're hovering now over the guards. We think it's going to be a 2-year rebuild where we will pick some players, premium players in positions that we need to start. So we've got Fatanu, who can play tackle, can play guard. I foresee him starting as a guard.
Yeah.
If Lucas and Cross are both fit, then he will start one of the guard positions, probably left guard when you've got Bradford at right guard, and then center. Hopefully it's going to be Olu. So that's our O-line sorted. And then you've got Junior Colson, who will go into a rotation at linebacker. I think this is going to be finding that, this position in the draft, finding that weapon that Mike Mack will want.
Right.
Leonard Taylor's still there as well. He's one of my guys. Thank you to Mitch for putting me onto him. But I think someone like Jaden Hicks, Sione Vaki as well, is someone that we've drafted many times.
I also like Malik Mustafa later on, but I think Jaden Hicks is the pick.
Yeah. And this is where it's that looking at where we've been to where we are, and you look at how Baltimore played last year with how they moved their safeties, that secondary just moved around and shifted.
Yeah.
It's like a Rubik's Cube.
I think Jaden Hicks is our pick here, just like you said. And the thing is the traditional strong and free safety roles are definitely gone now out of Seattle. He can play both. You look at our safety room, everyone's essentially on a 1-year deal. Julian Love's in the second year of his 2-year deal. Rayshawn Jenkins' deal is essentially a 1-year prove it. Kavion Wallace is the same. Kobe Bryant's still in there, but we don't know what Kobe's going to be. And Jarek Reed's the other option. He's coming off knee. I think Jaden Hicks is our pick here, and he gives Mike McDonald something to have fun with and play with. And I think that's the thing. So let's go ahead and take him here and see how the rest of the board falls.
That's for the safety there as well.
And there you go. Cedric Gray went. Elijah Jones and Green Bay took Mason Smith. Okay.
So there's a player on the board there who Mitch and I have mocked a lot on our pod and sort of in our private chats. If you go back to the strong safeties, there you go.
He's listed on here
James,
as a safety. He's played
please.
all over James Williams.
James Williams for the U. He is, in our opinion, the perfect safety linebacker disguise for a Mike Mack defense. Because if you look at what he did for the U, he played strong safety, free safety. He played outside linebacker. He played a middle linebacker. He played everywhere, and no one knew where he was. And he's just got that skill set that makes him perfect for this scheme. But then do you go safety?
Well, based on him, I think we can wait.
Yeah. I think we can get him slightly lower down.
Yeah.
But he's definitely a brilliant fit for what we're building in terms of versatile weaponry on defense, for sure. Definitely one to keep an eye on.
So looking at the rest of this, linebacker-wise, I think there's like Nathaniel Watson from Mississippi, someone I think we can get later on. Therese Knight, even Michael Barrett from Michigan, again, another good possible linebacker choice we can get later on. I kind of want to go look at the D-line and see what's in that area. Leonard Taylor. Sorry, Josh.
Between the top two there, Leonard Taylor, Taylor or Carter. So Taylor at the combine didn't show a lot, but his tape proves what he can do. I think Dwayne Carter's got some fantastic measurables and will, with the right coaching, will become a fantastic starting D lineman. Same as Wingo, actually, the top three there.
McKinley Jackson's another one that interests me as well from Texas A&M.
Yeah.
I think we go Dwayne Carter here.
I like it. I think that's a slam dunk. Either him or Taylor. I think they're both slam dunks at this point.
I think with Dwayne Carter though, we get a little bit more of a higher floor than we do with Leonard. Where if Leonard busts, I think he busts bad. Where Carter, I think if he busts, he's a rotational guy that is still impactful. He turns into like a Tony McDaniel in some respects to me a little bit from back in the day with the Seahawks. Just a big guy that can create pressure in the middle. May not get the sacks, but still is impactful enough for the linebackers. So we'll take Dwayne Carter, and we'll skip to our next pick. So, all right. So we're back on the clock here. And there you go. Leonard Taylor went there, and McKinley Jackson went right after. All right.
Tyler Davis as well.
So let's have a look here. And look who's still sitting on the board.
Yep.
Now I feel like we can justify that pick a little bit more, that we've addressed the interior D line. Now we can go back and get a Swiss Army knife, like a James Williams here. And, I just look at it going based on who comes after us, like a Pittsburgh, where they are known for grabbing those type of guys. Same with, Philadelphia, Houston, and San Fran. I don't want to see the Niners possibly scoop up a guy like this and him terrorize us for the next 4 years. So let's take James Williams here. I think that's the right move.
And
Agree.
If we just put it out there as well, so there's all this chatter about taking Jamal Adams back as a will linebacker. I think that is the perfect sort of substitute for that as well. So
I agree.
He will fill that role straight away.
Did you guys hear the
And-
comment from John Schneider on his show where he said, "Oh, we've kind of traded for Jamal and expected him to be a will linebacker, and it just never." I'm like, you can't be saying that you traded 2 first-round picks for a will
For a will,
linebacker.
yeah.
That did not make that wound heal any faster.
For the last 2 years, I've said he needs to move to linebacker, and yeah, obviously it didn't
All right.
happen
But that's
because of injuries.
but that's a move to cut your losses, right? Not
Yeah.
not like John said. John said that was what we meant all along, and it just didn't work out. It didn't make
Oh,
sense.
I'm so
Cover your
sorry.
tracks.
I'm so sorry, Josh.
Oh,
Tampa took him.
There he is.
Ah,
That would have been great.
you get sit behind
Um,
Baker.
Yeah, no kidding. So, and there went my other pick. Joe Milton went to Denver. All right, so we're back on the board here
Vaki's
at
gone.
5. So, looking at that, what does our interior O-line look like? Ooh,
Importantly.
Brandon Coleman's
Yes.
interesting to me.
My guy.
I think he would make a very good. He could be a very good swing backup at tackle if needed, because who knows how long we'll have George Fant for. But I feel he steps in and could compete with Bradford at guard
Guard. Yeah.
right away
100%.
and see which one of those two pans out. I don't think there's a problem taking him here. I don't know, Mitch,
What
do you
are
feel
other positions
differently?
of need? I think tight end we can take later. I know
Yes,
Mitch
so
has got
let's
an
just look
absolute
at the tight
darling
ends
as
here
well.
and just see what's there. So Bell, Eric Hall, AJ Barner. Like I
Yeah,
like
there's your
Wiley.
guy, Mitch. I'm a fan of Wiley. Tip Raymond as well. I think he's very much an inline
This
blocker.
is
with
another
his
guy I'm a
size.
fan of. Is
McLaughlin, yeah.
McCollum or McLaughlin. I'm a fan of him out of Arizona. And then, I'm not a fan. Like, I feel you can get Jack Westover in UDFA.
Mhm.
I don't think he's going to be a draftable guy. So I think we go back and go Brandon Coleman. And then our O-line it's solved in this draft. Like you said, it's 2 years. We've got a couple guys in here now that can do both. And I think it just adds to what we're trying to build in the wall, quote unquote, and interior of our O and D line. So all in
Mitch?
favor, I'm assuming.
Mitch, you fine with that?
I like Coleman's upside because of his elite physicals. Like he's a serious freak. The only caveat to this pick is that I also love Satoa Lamea underneath as well, because of his positional flexibility. But he doesn't have the elite. It depends what you
Yes.
want here, right? Are you taking Lumea for the versatility, or are you taking Coleman for the freaky athletic ability? And I like the upside for Grubb of taking the athletics over the versatility, just because of how much you see that O line shifting and stunting and swapping. Like I rate that better as a fit for Grubb.
Well, and
personally.
I think with Grubb and what Huff and Grubb are going to want to do is one thing that was also huge at Washington was their screen game and their guards pulling and being a part of that, which Seattle hasn't had for God knows how long. So I think again the athleticism of Coleman. Plus, when I look at Coleman is with Troy Fatanu, we get a bit of that versatility there if we need it. And then if Coleman has to go, he could even bump out and play right tackle if we needed to possibly. So he gives a little bit of flexibility in there. I totally agree here, though, on Lumea being more of a flexible fit. I just think, again, like you said, Mitch, the upside of athleticism goes in Coleman's favor. And I think where we're picking here in the 5th round, that's a better bargain for what we're trying to build.
My boy.
I agree with the pick.
Yeah.
It was more of an honourable mention for
Yeah.
Satoa Lamea there, because it looks like we overlooked him. But realistically, I think if those two are there and we're picking here, that's the pick.
Wow. So the Rams get a quarterback and Sam Hartman. Arizona took him. There you go. So Arizona took him in the 5th round. They had the same kind of view. So here we go. So now
I can tell you now that there is one player on that board that Mitch is going to say yes to at this point, and it's a tight end, and he's right there. It's AJ Barner. Mitch, do you want to watch lyrical about him?
No, there's 3 guys there on screen that are all brilliant, and it depends entirely on like Wiley Barner or Raymond are great additions. It just depends on what you feel our tight end room is lacking at this point. They're really different tight ends, those 3. So
for me, looking at the tight ends in Barner and Rittman, and then Wiley, I think Wiley fits what we're missing in the sense of he's the bigger bodied receiver that we lost in Colby Parkinson this offseason, where Barner and Rittman, they're kind of Will Disley, Farrell Brown, like they're going to be able to block well and catch a little bit here and there. I think with what Ryan Grubb likes to do, and you look at what he did with Jack Westover and Devin Culp there in Washington, I think with Wiley, you can split him out a little bit into the slot and use him a little bit more as a mismatch on linebackers. And in that receiving game, plus you got Farrell Brown as your blocker, and Fant's developed a little bit in that way. But the other reason I say Wiley is Fant's theoretically on a 1-year prove it deal as well with what his contract's structured like, even though it's a 2-year deal. So at least you're getting the receiving upside. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I like it. I mean, I'm comfortable with all three. If you think that Farrah Brown is going to get a few targets and we're truly going to have an actual receiving weapon in Fant this year for the first time since I can remember, then we don't necessarily need so much of a hybrid. We could take AJ Barner as a really experienced run blocking, piece with potential receiving upside, because let's face it, Michigan just didn't throw the ball. So there's no tape. It's not a huge amount of tape there for you looking at him because they just didn't throw the rock. So there's some serious upside there with Barner potentially. And we know he could go straight in and aid the run game. But then if you think that Jake Bobo is assisting so much already with being a willing blocker, and we're almost using him as a pseudo tight end and keeping him out there a lot.
Final form.
His final form is tight end, yeah. Maybe that's not so needed. So yeah, I lean more towards Raymond and Wiley in that case. So
all right, Josh, you're the deciding factor here. You gotta help us here.
We draft Barner so much. I'm going to go for Wiley.
All right.
I love how you're hovering over it already.
I'm just gonna. I can read your mind across the world here,
across the pond, mate.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we got Wiley. There we go. All right, so let's see what kind of happens. The Giants took him. They took Barner relatively right after we did. Okay, so we're now down to our second of our 6-round picks. I'm gonna go and I want to see what the receiver, because sneakily I think
Taj Washington
is a need for us, and Taj Washington is someone I love, and I think he fits a bit of kind of what they got Laviska Shenault for.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's an upgrade on D. Eskridge in his receiving ability and route running, and I truly think this is Tyler Lockett's last year. So I think you could plug Taj Washington in next year for some of what Tyler does in that intermediate to short yak, yards after catch, and be a return factor. And in the 6th round, I think it's an unbelievable value for a guy that went over 1,000 yards on 60 catches last year with 8 touchdowns, and he's averaging 18 yards a target essentially, or a catch. I either think it's Taj Washington or going over to linebacker. I think we are looking at Nathaniel Watson or Tyrese Knight.
I love Nate Watson here. That's a green dot. That's an experienced green dot wearing linebacker that's led a defense. That's extreme value at where we're picking someone with those sort of leadership traits. They shine like a beacon to me here as huge value. And also a positional need, like Josh said earlier. It's only Drake Thomas that we've got on a 2-year deal in that linebacker room. So taking 2 in this draft and having one of them to be a known leader that is great upside.
I get a lot of KJ Wright vibes watching Nathaniel Watson and the way he conducts himself on the field, and he's very, very good at sniffing out screens as I watch him play. He's a very good sideline linebacker. So I think it's a Nathaniel Watson. Josh, I know you want
to say Taj Washington. I you said about the whole Tyler Lockett deal at the moment. He's going to run out this contract and retire, because we've said it multiple times. He's not wanting for cash. He's now his real estate firm is now the preferred or partnered real estate firm with the Seahawks. So when that comes in, he's going to find a house and
Yeah.
make money from that. Washington at the Shrine Bowl shone for me. I thought he was a fantastic player. I just everything that came near his hands just seemed to just stick there. And that's what I want, a sticky wide receiver. As soon as the ball comes his way, he can put a hand out and he's going to catch it, whether it's for 6 yards, 60 yards, I don't care. But I also see the Wilson intrigue here because, like you said, he's got the green dot caliber. He's
So I'll throw,
Positional need plus
Yeah.
intangibles, isn't it?
I'll
I'm
throw a
gonna throw a
wrinkle
curve-
here. Do we trade
yeah.
back and try and get another 6th-round pick?
Bryce, you're my guy. That was literally I was just about to say. Let's throw a curveball
Let's
and maybe
trade.
my suggestion was going to be either trade our 7th and next year's 7th because next year's draft's nowhere near as deep, and I think
Right.
a lot of teams are going to package 2025 draft picks to move up this year and take the positions of depth like wide receiver because Taj Washington next year is a 5th round pick.
So I'm going
higher.
to try and do this with the Bengals.
Okay.
That's who I'm going to try and do this with. Let's see if we can do this. We have 1 trade offer left. Let's see if we can do this with Cincinnati. So I'm going to take that. Oh, it won't let me take that out. Damn. Okay, and let's go this. Oh, I can't pick next year. Why can I not pick next year's pick?
Oh,
Oh,
that sucks. Okay, you can't package next year. That sucks.
I could do that.
I mean,
we could go 2 in this round and take both of them because a quarterback for me. So ideally with our 7th pick, I wanted to take a swing at a quarterback, which was going to be Devin Leary out of Kentucky.
Mhm.
But I think I can get him as a UDFA probably or prioritized free agent. So let's, that's a tough. Let's see if I can do this. Let's see if they accept that. Let's see. Okay, so they did. So what occurred? Okay, so we moved. They took the other tight end we talked about, Riemann. Let's get Watson here. Oh, I'm so Detroit ruined everything. You're such a fan for them, Josh. They read your mind. Oh,
It should be Detroit GM.
yeah, no kidding,
Well,
right?
there might still be a wide receiver for us.
Let's have a look.
I'm just before we talk wide receiver here. Can we just say for someone like Grubb, who has unlocked potential in people, and Mitch and I said this in a previous pod of ours, running back.
Yes, so that's something I've thought of because I love the Kenny McIntosh pick last year, but I'm also worried about is he actually because you never saw him last year, and I don't know if that was a Carroll thing or what it was, but it kind of has me a little worried. So let's take a look at running back just to see if Josh has got a point here. Oh, this
Cody
is
Schrader
interesting.
from Mizzou.
That's
It's a
who I
fun one.
literally. Yeah.
Frank Gore
Bryce-
Jr.
Bryce is-
Legacy.
Bry-
Just
Bryce
stick
and
it
I
to
are
the
just-
Niners.
This is
Bryce
now
and I
a
are on the
problem.
same page.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is now this is now a problem for me because in my opinion, he might be the best pass blocking running back I've seen in a long time. And with what Grubb can do with screen game, and he is, in my opinion, if they drafted him, he beats Kenny McIntosh out for that 3rd down role. Oh, this is now
Dependent on the play. I think Kenny McIntosh's got a lot to offer in the passing game on 3rd down.
he does. Oh, bother. Crap.
I mean, that's a really good option. What other positions?
You're welcome for putting
you-
that spanner in the works. I'm just going to sit back now and,
Thanks,
and
Josh.
much like Ryan, I'm going to put myself on mute and let you two argue this out.
I love it personally, but what other gems have we got? Who's on the board
Some big
overall?
board.
So
Okay.
Spanford's a consideration. Cody
Greenfield.
Schrader. Yeah.
Cornelius Johnson had big play potential at Michigan, but like you said, they didn't throw the ball enough to value that.
you've also got to consider how many of these people we're looking at now are going to be UDFAs who can pick up if we're trying to be as realistic as possible.
Yeah,
especially
I'm going. I think we got to go here. Value of what we're getting versus what the receiving value is. I think this might be the better pick.
Yeah.
I'm happy with it. I think of all the gems that are on the board, if all those players hit free agency, Cody Schrader's one you'd really struggle to get in your building. I think there'd be a line of 32 teams, and you'd want to be at the front of that queue because he's going to go. He was a do-it-all guy as well. Like he was such a willing player, contributing all over the place as well.
And the other role that I look at is they signed Laviska Shenault, which to me, I think he's going to be the number one kick returner and fourth receiver, whatever they want to do in their offense. I'm not sold that D. Eskridge is on this roster, and I think if Cody shows up in camp, he might be that other kick returner as well with the new rule change. He gives you that. And Josh is just sitting there loving the fact that he threw this curveball into the last part of the draft after Taj Washington wasn't picked.
We put a poll out on our Twitter or X, whatever it's called now by Elon Musk, of who people prefer to have as their kick returners. And it was McIntosh and Shenault.
That's who I voted for. I voted on your poll.
Shenault.
Oh, God. Okay, you know what? Just to throw an extra wrinkle in, I'm going to look at the quarterbacks because I'm a quarterback guy. Oh, look, Plumlee's there. Fantastic.
He's UDFA. He's going to be UDFA. Same as
and Leary.
Leary, damn it.
If you imagine that we were willing to move next year's 6th or 7th pick in exchange, we could have split and picked up an extra pick here and done that. I think in a ideal world, we could have pulled that off, I think.
I agree.
Tagovailoa there as well.
All right, you know what? I'm going to make the executive decision. We are going to go with the running back.
Yes. My guy.
I'll make one more point on Cody Schrader as well.
Yep.
Now that you can put two receivers back for kickoffs, you're sometimes going to want one of the two to be a lead block for the other. And with Cody Schrader being such a good third down pass protector, and the speed that he can move at, I not only would back him to get in front of the receiving player if it wasn't him, I rate him as a thumper as well. And I think that you could, he'd be such a willing, selfless player to get in front and create a yard. I think that could be really interesting. I think it's going to be really interesting. Anyway.
I feel like throughout this whole draft, Josh secretly got what he wanted most of the time by just secretly manipulating me and Mitch down a path.
Do you know what it is? Mitch and I have done so many mock drafts where we've picked our favorites, and we've come to this level now where every time we do a mock draft together, we have such in-depth discussions where we both kind of go, yeah, right, yeah, it's good sense. It makes sense. And I wouldn't be angry with anyone we've picked there, whether it's realistic or not, and where people fall. I think that is a fantastic draft for Seahawks. Great.
I always get the same.
I love that
every time.
Yeah, ditto, but I love it, and I can't help but do the Doc Brown voice as well every time I see it.
All right, let's see. So this is our results we did do quite a bit of trading. We ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 picks in total. If the Seattle Seahawks walked out of this year's draft looking like that, I think they're well on to being a potential. You've solved a lot of issues in this that you wouldn't have to address necessarily in 2025 and that draft. And I truly think that year, if there is a quarterback you like with the comp picks that you have picked up this free agency, they could trade up and go get a guy if they wanted somebody. If they liked Quinn Ewers, they could justify it more if you had a draft like this to go up and get a guy.
Yeah, do you know what's interesting about this as well? Sorry, Josh. Is I think there's only 2 or maybe 3 players on that list of players who only play one position. Fatanu and Hicks and Carter and Williams and Coleman, they all are established multi-positional players. it speaks to exactly what we're going to be doing with the disguise on offense and defense this year. That is now what we see as a Seahawks player on both sides of the ball.
100%. I think if they walked out with this draft, I'm not mad at John Schneider and this. I think they set themselves up for this new era of Seahawk football in the best way they possibly can. You addressed a lot of needs, but you got a lot of versatility, and you get a lot of competition for guys that are already on that roster.
Hey guys, I'm back here. So I love the Fontanu and Junior Colson, and I agree with you guys. The only thing for me is I do want to get a quarterback this draft. Like that's the only thing I want to see is I just want to see John take a shot at somebody, whether it's a big arm or just some intangible, because I don't want to keep kicking the can down the road. That's the only thing. We talk about Quinn Ewers and and then all of a sudden he gets scooped up because, like I said, he falls in the top 5, top 10 again. So that's the only thing for me. Other than that, though, I agree. I like it overall for sure.
I think the quarterback thing, I reckon we'll take someone's UDFA. I think Plumlee is primed as a UDFA to sit behind people and just see how he goes. And I think next year, depending on how if Gino doesn't work well this year, I think next year that's something we'll focus on. But this year it's a matter of putting people in front of Gino and around Gino that will make this roster and this team work better and allow Gino the time to be able to actually work the game that would play. Because let's face it, last season that was Gino's biggest issue. That O-line was so bad at times that he couldn't throw the ball, or he couldn't find his reads. He had to go through 2 reads and didn't have time to get to the 3rd or 4th read. And I think that's where this draft's going to be focused. And next year, obviously, if it doesn't work this year with Gino, next year I think that's where we might even see a trade up for Quinn Ewers, or we might find a gem like a Russell Wilson in the 3rd round again, or this season or this year we might find a UDFA who we can do that with. I understand exactly what you're saying, because I'd love us to get one of these premium quarterbacks, but I think there's more holes in this roster right now than just the quarterback. Trade or giving away the franchise's future for that one player at quarterback, and it is the most important position in football. I think that'd be a bit silly. I'd love us to get one of these. Like I said, Jordan Travis would be my guy.
Yeah.
Who I'd love to see get in the sort of the 4th or 5th round because of his injury history and the injury he's just coming back from now. If we can get him and sitting behind Gino for 2 years, I think he'd be a fantastic addition to this team. But
yeah, and that's exactly how I look at it. Like, because whoever we bring in, if we do bring in a guy this year, I would 100% want him to sit a year, like Bryce, to Bryce's point, have that Green Bay. Like I was actually pretty high on Jordan Love, and just a big reason was because of the organization he went to and just the track record, how they do things with the quarterback, sit him. And that's why I actually thought we both thought Anthony Richardson would have been, if he was there at 5, they would have scooped him. Perfect scenario for everybody. He sits behind Gino for at least a season, maybe 2. He had limited action in college. He hasn't even learned to play the position. And then you kind of see what happens. He gets thrown into the Wolves, and Indy, puts his head down, shoulder down, gets hurt, and then we'll see what happens with him. So that would be my vision for a QB. Obviously, he's definitely sitting for a year, and the Jordan Travis, like you brought up, that would be, that'd be great if you get him later on. So yeah, no, I mean, for sure.
If we were doing, because we'd obviously skip to our picks, but if we were doing this in real time, like John Schneider would be, and Jordan Travis was there when we picked, I think it was James Wilson that we took, and he'd come off the board 3 or 4 picks before we were picking. Realistically, in that spot, if we're sitting there and he's there, and we could package our pick, move up 3 or 4 spots, take our pick, and again, like a future 5th or a future 6th together with it, move up, just get your guy, get a project on the roster to sit. I'd be so happy with that. But because we're simming straight to picks and we're trying to fit this into like half an hour, I think we kind of lose the ability to kind of do those cute movements around the board to move up and snap a guy off. I think we all kind of went, that was because they went in like 2 or 3 picks as well.
Yeah.
It was like all the options went. So yeah, no, I definitely would be really supportive of us doing something like that for sure. And I'm higher on everyone but Milton. To be honest, I think Milton's the guy that he's kind of the bargain basement last option, really. Just because his skill set is slightly more restricted than it's not a rounded skill set with Milton. Right?
You want a deep ball? I can do a deep
project.
ball. Yeah.
The one thing with Joe Milton,
shallow balls. Oh no.
the one thing with Joe Milton for me, and this is where I look at him, I wish he had played one more year at Tennessee just to truly see what he was capable of. Because the Tennessee offense, with what Hempel does there, you look at Hendon Hooker and how polarizing he was even last year before his injury. With was he a Heisman candidate? Because their guys are just running open by themselves the way that they design their offense. The thing I come back to with Milton and why I'm okay taking a flyer on him, and I totally agree. Like his go-to thing is I can launch at 90 yards. If you want to have someone run straight 90 yards, I'll throw it to him. Jim Harbaugh recruited him, and Jim Harbaugh knows a thing or two about quarterbacks. And you look at his history, and he recruited him to Michigan. I don't think Jim Harbaugh just recruits guys sometimes just to recruit them. Like he did play a bit during the COVID year, and then obviously JJ showed up. JJ offered a bit more and what he's capable of. That's why I think I would be okay taking the swinger. Not saying that I think he's going to develop into being some superstar quarterback, but his intangibles are just interesting. But for me right now, the guy I keep coming back to is Jordan Travis. His leadership, his skill set, he can make the throws. And I think that's one thing, John always says, and it always sticks in my mind. I want a guy that when he walks in the room, it tilts his direction. Jordan Travis gives me that vibe because you look at all the adversity he went through at Florida State, from, switch positions to, he's getting a bit better, to we can't win without him when he's not on the field. Like their team just fell apart last year after his, injury. And he's a guy, because of his injury, you might be able to get him where we kind of said it. You could play around in there and jump up and grab him in that spot. But no, overall, like, I love that draft. If that mock comes out, that's probably one of my favorite mocks that we've done. Getting a lot of guys for value there, and especially the 2 safeties we walked out of there with. I think those 2 guys could be very impactful players this year and going forward, where we could see the safety room, if that were to happen in 2 years, your safety room's Jarek Reed and Williams and Hicks. And I think that would be who's coming, who's not coming, who's dropping into coverage, and Mike McDaniel would have all the versatility he wants in that defense.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, dude.
Guys, that was a lot of fun. We appreciate you guys coming on, hanging out for this long with us. Awesome stuff, awesome insight. Before we get out of here, why don't you tell everybody that's watching this pod what you guys are up to, where they can find your stuff? We know you got the podcast, but let all the listeners know where they can find you guys.
Yeah, I mean, so we're the 12 Talk podcast. We're a UK-based Seahawks podcast. We work with the UK Seahawkers. You can find us on YouTube. Just search up 12 Talk podcast. We've got some fantastic guests. Thank you as well so much for having us on. It's been brilliant. We've really enjoyed it. You can find us on X, Twitter, that thing that Elon Musk owns, at 12 Talk Pod. We've got an Instagram, we've got a Facebook group as well. You can find us on all your main podcasting apps as well: Spotify, Amazon, all those other ones. And yeah, it's just been an absolute pleasure. And obviously YouTube, find us on there, 12 Talk Podcast. This has just been amazing. I've really enjoyed myself, guys. Thank you so much. We love exactly what we love, everything you guys do. You've had some fantastic guests as well. I know Mitch probably says the exact same thing as well. And we've also got a Discord channel. If you are on Discord and you want to talk Seahawks, we've got people that are from Germany, the US, the UK, all over Europe. Come and find us. I'll pin post on our X.
Good stuff, man. Go ahead. Sorry, Mitch.
No, I was just going to say I was going to echo what Josh said and just say a thank you from myself, and just thank you for having us, and really enjoyed it. Any excuse for me to talk draft, I love it. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, no, it was awesome.
So draft goblin.
Yeah, guys, go over to their channel, check them out, and definitely subscribe to their stuff. They're doing good things over there too. So Josh and Mitch, we appreciate it. And you know what? Hopefully we talk soon here in the future.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right,
Peace. See you later.
take care.
Yeah.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.